Now try to check in with CNN reporter Karen Caifa, who is in Washington this morning. Karen, thank you for joining us. And this was quite an interesting announcement and as well a confusing announcement last night from the U.S. president.
Yeah, absolutely, Melanie. And there is still a lot to sort through. We didn't even know that the president was going to be delivering this Oval Office address until just a few hours before. And even then, the timing of it was in flux until we finally heard it would be at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But these Oval Office addresses are usually reserved for American presidents to deliver very serious news. And this was an effort for the White House to show that President Trump and the administration is on top of the coronavirus response. One of the highlights or headlines to come out of last night's speech, of course, was this ban on travel, the way President Trump described it. What it really is a series of restrictions over the next 30 days on European nationals and other foreign nationals from flying from Europe here to the U.S. It does not apply to American citizens or their families or U.S. permanent residents, but really restrictions, not an outright ban on travel between the countries on the European continent here to the U.S. in an effort to curb the spread of coronavirus from what the Trump administration is now really viewing, with things kind of tamping down in China and South Korea, as the epicenter of the outbreak, especially what's been happening in Italy, Melanie.
For you, Karen, personally, as media, being in Washington and hearing this surprise announcement, but also being able to cover this with the widespread virus that we've seen there as well, what's it been like for you as a journalist?
Yeah, you know, it's been interesting to see just how quickly these developments have ramped up here in the U.S. Initially, we were speaking about this as something that was happening in China, and then we saw the wave and what was happening in northern Italy and happening on the European continent. And now it is something that is very much a concern for Americans. And a lot of Americans have questions. Obviously, the White House, that's why they put the president out last night to assure in some ways that they were responding to this. But a lot of Americans still have questions even after the president's address. It was interesting to see the succession, the rapid succession of events that took place after the president's address. You had the NBA suspending play indefinitely after a player tested positive for the coronavirus. And then you had the announcement that actor Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson had tested positive while on location in Australia. So really at the highest levels of politics now, pop culture and professional sports, for a lot of Americans, this really became real. And you're starting to see a lot of changes in the habits of Americans as they see these pockets in New York, here on the East Coast, and Washington State on the West.
Yeah, absolutely. That's CNN's reporter Karen Caifa. We appreciate your time. Thank you for that.